Recording. There you go.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this regular council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interests they may have at the appropriate time. And we'll go to the minutes of the previous council and committee meetings. So the minutes of the regular council of December 2021, December 6th, 2021. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments about those minutes? All in favor of receiving and filing those? That is carried. Thank you. We have no doubt. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go back. I was in camera. We do have a delegation coming up, but that is a timed event for 6:30. So we're going to go on. Scheduled meetings and events. Is there any questions or comments on those? Okay, we will go to councillor commitments. Does anyone have anything to add to councillor commitments today? Okay, then we will go with councillors' items. Councillor Westgate, do you have anything for council today?
No, I have nothing. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor White.
I have nothing.
Councillor Mitchell.
Nothing to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, and Councillor Morris.
You got a clean slate, nothing for me.
All right. That was quick and painless. We'll go on to staff items. And we'll go to a verbal update from Amanda on the OGRA conference delegation requests and then on the letter of thanks. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor Ronda. So I just wanted to advise, firstly, that the OGRA dates have moved as per the note in meeting events to April date from the originally scheduled February date. And as such, the delegation timelines have been extended until March 11th. So should council have any requests that they'd like to put into ministers for meetings, we'd be happy to follow that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I move on?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
So my second verbal update is I just wanted to share with all members of council that the two letters provided, one to the Alvinston Agricultural Society and one to the municipality of Brook Alvinston Council and staff have been sent on behalf of this council and our staff team, just providing thanks to the municipality of Brook Alvinston and the Fair Board for their partnership in working with Warwick earlier in 2021 to allow for ice in early while we were under construction. So it was a great partnership and we really appreciate their support, which enabled us to best support our users.
Okay, thank you. We are very grateful to both the municipality of Brook Alvinston and the Agricultural Society for their support. We will go on to accounts and the GL report. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight, Mr. Jarrett?
This is about 99.45% complete for the year. We got waste management numbers subsequent to this being produced. Their tonnage came in at 1.398, I believe. So they were close, and then the rest of it will tidy up hopefully by about the end of February when we close for the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jarrett? If not, we need a motion to receive and file that. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried, and we'll go on to the non-action correspondence. Is there anything anyone on council would like to highlight from the non-action correspondence tonight? We do need a motion to receive and file the remainder of that correspondence. moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. And we have one action item or action correspondence. How does council want to deal with that? Councillor Mitchell?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I should declare a conflict potentially with that one, so I'll just abstain from that.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just remind you to maybe send a quick note to the clerk in the future meeting.
Yep, will
Councillor
do.
Westgate?
I'd like to support it.
Okay, and do we have a seconder to that? Councillor White? Any discussion? All in favor of supporting that motion? That is carried. And so we don't need a motion to receive and file the remainder, do we? No. Okay, so we will move on to staff reports and 13A, which is the project update for the township office. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. Questions or comments on that report? Councillor Westgate?
I just have a comment. I think the stucco on the outside and the outside is gonna look good. I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Councillor Mitchell, did you have a comment or a question? You are muted.
Sorry, just wanted to reiterate that. It does look great downtown. Yeah, I'm happy to see the progress, and I'm sure our community does as well. Could we have maybe a verbal update just for those watching at home?
Sure. Perhaps Amanda, you
Absolutely.
would highlight some of the great things that are happening there.
Sure. So I can do my best. Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell, for the opportunity. The first note in this project is, or in this report, is just to outline to council and to clarify some of the questions we've had from members of the public regarding the development oversight of this project. So unlike, say, the Arena and East Lambton Community Complex, this project is managed by a third-party developer and built directly by them, and the municipality will be a tenant. So it's not a municipally led project as we see often with roads or the Arena, for example. But we do and are continuing to work in partnership with the developer to, do what we can to assist with timelines and get them that information they need as soon as they need it, especially in regards to interior fit up, which is where the municipality has some input and ability. So to date on that part of the role, we've been able to confirm all security, AV requirements, electrical requirements, plumbing requirements, as well as furniture and layout. So that's all great and done. In terms of the building status, the building will be is now closed in except for the entry and exit doors. They're still waiting, or last we spoke to the developer, they were still waiting on the final glass order for those to be installed. They're working with our security and IT providers to make sure all the cabling is done in correspondence with the municipality's requirements so that everything will function great when we get in there. They are also doing a security system install, and drywall was installed last week. So they're really starting to get to the interior fit up portion. And soon we'll be able to offer council a tour potentially of the facility. We're aiming for the first week in February, and we're just waiting to hear dates from the developer. So once we have that information, we'll absolutely share with council and hopefully you get to see the interior for the first time. I haven't been inside myself, so it'll be great to see that progress.
That is a great update, and still looking at a spring move-in.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Rumbas. That's still the timeline that we've been provided by the developer is spring, and we are prepared and ready with a tentative moving plan, but we'll be ready when we have firm dates to make sure that that's facilitated quickly.
That's great. I'm sure our staff is looking forward to that. All right. All in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the occupational health and safety policy. We need a mover and a seconder to approve that. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that report? All in favor? That is carried. Go on to the annual accessibility report. So we need a mover and a seconder to approve that report as well. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Any questions or comments on that report? All in favor of approving that report? Thank you. And an update on the pricing and operating bylaws for the cemetery. We need a mover and a seconder to approve that. Councillor Westgate and seconded by Councillor White. Questions or comments on the new pricing? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And we'll go to E, which is the proposed newsletter content. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to add? Councillor Morris?
I wonder if we should put an update in there on when we can expect the township office to be functional and the East Lambton Community Complex.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I will definitely make note of that.
People are asking.
One concern that I had was the COVID update, and not that I don't want to inform our public, it's just that we could publish it one day and the next day it can change. So I am a bit hesitant to put any information as far as that is concerned on a newsletter that, like, we just don't want the day that it comes out for it to be all new information. So we just got to be careful what information we put as far as that's concerned.
I agree with the mayor. It changes so quick. By the time it comes out, halls could be open again and the arena going, I hope.
Let's hope. Yes.
That's a great point, yeah, because we do have about a 2-week turnaround time, so I'll keep that in mind for other updates as well.
Yeah, our staff has been very resilient when it comes to figuring out how we're going to respond to these announcements, but at least the public seems very used to that as well, and they have become resilient as well. All right, any other comments or suggestions for the newsletter? All in favor of receiving and filing that report then? That is carried. And we have information on the municipal election key dates and calendar updates. We need to receive and file that. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Morris.
Yeah, Amanda, why is the inaugural council meeting moved up to November 15th? It's always the 1st of December.
The legislation changed
Okay.
and the window for the inaugural council meeting moved up. I think is it November 5th? Yeah, so November 15th, it gives a 5-day period. Now the Municipal Elections Act and the November, or a short window, and the November 15th date is the first date that it's able to happen.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. And we will go on to G, which is the sale and surplus land. So this is stating that Warwick Township Council declares that the 43.65 acres of land known as roll number 384104200202 or 258020000 and the 13.27 acres of land, and I'm not going to read the roll number, it's in the minutes, be declared as surplus. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
Before we do that, I just want to make it known that I transposed the wrong roll number for the second parcel. It's 06913, but it's still the same discussed parcel. We will make a change.
Thank you. Thank you. And that was moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments on that? That is carried. Oh, sorry, Councillor Westgate, you have a comment? You are muted, Councillor Westgate.
We have other lands that we've sold, like in the industrial park. I don't remember doing this for them. Is there other lands we should be doing the same for?
These are the saleable lands based on an inventory right now. So at this point in time, they're the only ones that we could identify.
It was my understanding that the land in the industrial park must have been put up as surplus a long time ago, wouldn't it have been? When
It
was
would predate
advertised?
me, but I'd be surprised if it was sold without being surplus.
We bought it to sell it. I
Yeah,
don't ever remember putting it up for surplus.
perhaps that was just a step that was missed in the past.
And maybe it was done at the time, but
Amanda?
Councillor Westgate, thank you. And that was flagged, I think, at a recent council meeting, a question to review whether it was declared surplus. We did a cursory review through our records, and I cannot find a resolution as such declaring the industrial lands surplus. However, my consultation with our legal counsel reveals that there is a recollection from our lawyer of a surplus after we acquired the land, but I don't have a record. To be safe, for the very limited parcels we have left in the industrial park, council could complete a friendly amendment to the existing resolution just to state the inclusion of any additional currently unsold lands in the industrial park boundaries. And we could make that amendment just to make sure we're covered off for any future.
No, our mover and a seconder, are you wanting to do that? I'm trying to think of who moved and seconded that. I think it was Councillor White and Councillor Morris.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay, so just to confirm that that is going to be a friendly amendment to the original motion.
Thank you, Mayor Rembas. For the minutes, we'll make that amendment to include those lands.
Okay, all in favor of that? That is carried. Thank you. And we'll go on to the Economic Development and Promotions Quarterly Update. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that report? Anything you want to highlight, Stephanie? Seeing none.
Mayor Westgate. Oh, sorry. There's not a whole lot to update you on. I think we're just continuing on with the wayfinding strategy and the regular updates with the development. So.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that we haven't lost Amanda. And it looks like we have.
Mayor, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So I can
There
hear
you
you by audio, but unfortunately my hosting capabilities have just suspended. So you're good to continue with the meeting, and I will reconnect to internet at home here. And once I'm back in, you'll see me, but please go ahead and continue with the meeting.
Thank you. All right, council, all in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. And we'll go to the site plan exemption report for 6836 Arcona Road. And staff is looking for council direction on this. And how does council want to deal with this? I'm wondering if we should maybe have some background as to why the person is looking for an exemption.
Mayor Rumboats, would you like me to speak to the matter?
Yes, please.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. So just to provide a little bit of a brief update, I wasn't actively involved in this file. However, I was cursory involved. Essentially, I believe the application is for 6836 Arcona Road, where there currently exists a trucking operation, J&L Trucking, if I recall correctly. I mean, maybe inaccurate. And what they're proposing to do is essentially demolish one of the existing structures and construct a new building. And staff are of the position that a site plan agreement is warranted. However, the applicant is requesting that it not be necessary, presumably based on the history of the site and the longevity of the activities on the property.
Okay, does anybody on council have any questions? Councilor Morris? And then
How is this zoned? This property?
It's zoned, still zoned agricultural.
Sorry.
It does not have it has an agricultural zoning.
Well, I don't think we're in a usual habit of having a site plan for agricultural buildings, are we?
No, I would suggest that these are not agricultural buildings. They're specifically being used for the trucking operation. Not an agricultural. There is no agricultural activity occurring on that limited parcel.
But it is zoned agriculture.
Correct.
Councilor Mitchell?
Luis, do you know whether this new build is going to be on the same slab or foundation? Like, is it that invasive of a build, do you think? Or do you know?
The building itself, if I may, through your worship, Councilor Mitchell, the existing, if I could put up a site plan, I'd be happy to elaborate. Is that possible, Amanda, for me to share my screen? Okay.
You should be able to now, Lewis.
Thank you very much. So I'm not sure if council can see my screen, but essentially this existing structure here will be demolished and replaced with a larger structure here to accommodate their operation. So it's a significant impact, but in the scale of things, it's comparative, let's say, in scale to the existing building.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Councilor Westgate?
I believe this business and this building's been there for a long time. I don't think anything is really being changed. In the past 20 years, I've never heard of us having a drainage problem or problem of any kind there. And I don't think there's significant enough change that we need to have a site plan here.
So are you making a motion that we go forward without a site plan then, Councilor Westgate?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
And Councilor Morris?
I second that motion.
Okay. Any further comments? Councilor White?
Just a question on the zoning. I know it's agricultural right now. Is that fair to the rest of the buildings that have been zoned properly in the township, or the rest of the businesses? Like, it's more of it's a commercial operation. It's not an agricultural operation there.
If I may, through your worship, to Councillor
Yes,
White.
great.
I would suggest that it may be inconsistent with, let's say, current standards or approaches to zoning and to the management of lands within the township. However, it is a historical use, and even though it is zoned as agricultural, it does have a site-specific zoning, and what I mean by that is it does allow for existing. It's an existing trucking operation, if I recall correctly with the wording. And so if you look at that as being an existing facility or existing use on the land, and the new building simply being an extension of that use, then it's suitably zoned to allow for the continued use and expansion of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? All in favor of that motion then? That is carried. Thank you. We will, I'm not sure if we have time to do this next one or not. I only have about 2 minutes before our delegation is scheduled. So I think we were going to go up to that and welcome our delegation into the meeting. That takes a minute or two.
Thank you, Mayor Rembas. Wayne and John from Waste Management are joining us right now.
Thank you. Good evening, Wayne.
Good evening, Mayor Rombos. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. As soon as John joins us, then I will turn the meeting over to you.
Perfect.
Presentation. I see John's with us, but his box looks black to me.
Yes, John is with us, but it does appear his video might be on with the cover on, or he's chosen not to go on video. John, can you hear us? You are unmuted, muted.
Now I know John's not shy, so it's obviously something going on with his video.
So if it's all right, we can probably go ahead. I know John was going to let me do the majority of the presentation. He just really wanted his name in the minutes. So as long as that works for everyone, whether we can see his face or not is probably not super important.
No problem, Wayne. Then I will turn the meeting over to you then.
Okay, appreciate that. Just a quick clarification. Have we done an introduction kind of already as to what we're here presenting, or no?
No.
No. Wayne, it's just it is included on the agenda, the proposed mapping and proposal, and I'm ready to share the screen. Should you wish to do that, you can prompt me.
I appreciate that, Amanda. Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Wayne Jankin. I think I know pretty much everyone who's on here. I am maybe joined tonight by John McDonald, Both of us represent waste management and represent the waste management portion of the Twin Creeks End Use Committee. I'm here to, number one, announce a planned expansion for our trail network, but also to provide a bit of background information on the End Use Committee itself, our accomplishments to date, and then answer any questions that you might have as council or as other individuals here joining us tonight. So jumping right into it, first, background, waste management is required by our operating permit at the landfill to implement an end use plan at least 2 years prior to landfill closure. Neither the township nor ourselves wanted to wait that long to implement a beneficial end use for the landfill to our host community, which is Warwick Township. We worked together with Warwick to create the End Use Committee, and the End Use Committee has now been active for approximately 10 years. The committee is currently composed of 5 members, Councillor Westgate, Councillor Mitchell, Amanda from the Township, and John and myself from WM. And the committee is also regularly attended by other Warwick staff. Since the creation of the End Use Committee, we have worked to identify opportunities to utilize buffer lands at the landfill for beneficial use, and have identified walking and nature trails as kind of a priority for us. Hoping that you're familiar with the existing walking trail, nature trail network. As a committee, we're very proud of the trail system and the related features, and we've received a lot of positive feedback from the community. To date, we've accomplished 5 tasks or 5 implementation projects. The first of which goes back a bit to the cemetery parking lot and the Nauvoo trailhead, just north of the cemetery on Nauvoo Road. Second, we implemented a leash-free dog park and parking area on Confederation Line together with that trailhead. Third, we implemented a granular trail connecting those 2 trailheads. That's a 2.2 kilometer trail. Next, we connected the dog park to the Watford Arena, and together with that, or in a subsequent phase to that, implemented a pedestrian crosswalk over Confederation Line. Over the last couple of years, we've worked together as a committee to look at further opportunities to expand the trail system. And we identified the waste management owned lands, which are south of the landfill, but north of Confederation Line, as sort of the most interesting, and therefore designed a trail extension for this area. The trail extension is in a drawing here that hopefully Amanda will bring up onto screen. Amanda did mention that it is in your packages this evening. Thank you, Amanda. And if you wouldn't mind, similar to the Parks and Rec delegation, if you could kind of move around your cursor as I discuss kind of the 3 phases here. The trail extension is proposed in 3 phases over multiple years, kind of as follows, where the green trail at the bottom, which is the south extent of our land running parallel to Confederation Line, would be phase 1. The second, I'm calling it purple, on the right-hand side of the page, kind of making a loop down at the bottom, running along Brown Creek. And the third being the blue line, just south of the landfill zone lands, part of the agricultural lands, and all of that joining over to the orange, which is the existing trail, which starts at the leash-free dog park and carries on north off the page and carries on over to the Nauvoo trailhead over at the cemetery. Combined, these 3 new trail extensions, so green, purple, and blue, will add an additional 2.5 kilometers of trail. So we're really excited about this. Kind of the last piece here, I just want to briefly talk about the fact that there are multiple reviews and approvals needed for this project. Obviously, the End Use Committee brought this forward first. We presented this trail network to the Conservation Authority, specifically St. Clair. That permit application went in back in March, was approved in November. That permit was required as construction is within the hazard land along the creek, and there are a couple culverts to be installed in the drainage area there as well. Just last week, Amanda and I presented or worked together to present to the Parks and Rec Committee. We're here tonight presenting to Warwick Council. And lastly, I'm mentioning this because a part of the Purple Trail is located in an area as identified as having a significant archaeological importance. During the archaeological studies for the landfill expansion, we identified an area that had Walpole Island First Nations artifacts. We've protected that area in conjunction with Walpole Island. That is the tree plantation area you see down in that bottom corner where Brown Creek meets Confederation. We will certainly engage them for their approval before proceeding with that section of the bottom loop there. So hopefully that's enough background, but I'm certainly here tonight to answer any questions. And ultimately, what we're really hoping for as a committee is support from council to proceed with this trail extension over the next few phases. So that's my part.
Is there any questions, council? I'm wondering, Councillor Mitchell and then Councillor White.
Sorry, just to, I really enjoy the end use vision with this trails all connecting. I do notice that there are a lot of straight lines, and I know in touring trails in other municipalities, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a meander. I'm just wondering if we can if that's still a possibility, or whether that's something we could look into, Wayne.
Yeah, so appreciate your comment. Both appreciate the compliment and then the comment. Thank you. We've worked as a committee to try and limit the impact of the trail on WM lands, meaning these are agricultural and productive lands, taking them out of agricultural use to turn them into recreational use. Not ideal. There are vegetative plantings in both trails that run parallel to Confederation. And so we're trying to incorporate that kind of natural feel of the plantings and then take the user over to the most interesting features, which will be along the creek and I call it the boot. It reminds me of Italy, that bottom corner of the WM property down at the bottom of Brown Creek. To me, it's similar to the existing trail that does have a straight portion that gets us back into the woodlot and gets that character and engagement with nature. It is certainly a bit of a hike or a straight line to get you to that destination or that interest, but we think it works, and we think it works based on the feedback we've had. So hopefully that's an answer for you. Maybe not exactly what you wanted to hear.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks.
Councillor White, you had a comment?
Just a comment that the rec committee was in full support and thought it was a great idea and really liked the plan. So last week.
Thank you.
That's great to hear. One of my questions was going to be on that. I'm wondering, have you considered, like I've seen in the past where Brown Creek has flooded and that area there has been underwater, even with the trees there. Will that have an impact on the trail itself, on the type of trail you decide to use, or how will that work if it does flood?
Yeah, a great point, Mayor. And honestly, I'm going to admit we haven't really processed that. There are a couple conditions that came with the permit from the Conservation Authority. namely the proximity of the trail to the banks of the creek, and leaving vegetative protection in place to make sure that we don't disturb the banks. I would think we can certainly dive into a little more work and design on this, but I would think that any flooding would be of a short duration, that we could either sign it as temporarily closed or something like that. I think I'd much rather have a trail available most of the time versus not proceeding with something I think as interesting as this could be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just was worried, like, we don't want to spend a bunch of money and have it wiped out with one flood.
No, totally good point. And I think what I propose to do is to take that back to our design engineer for this trail and make sure that we factored that in to the materials of construction. So I like that.
Okay. I'm wondering, we did have a community member who was very enthusiastic about the idea of doing a trail along Nauvoo Road, along the, to connect what's already existing. Was that considered by the end use committee, and why was that not gone through? Like, why did we decide against that?
Yeah, well, several reasons. Yes, that was brought forward to the end use committee. I believe it was also brought forward to council. I'm not sure of the order of presentations there. First and foremost, the end use committee is the landfill end use committee, meaning that we're working with landfill property and not property that we don't own or control, which is pretty much the entirety of the length of that. Sorry, I'm not super familiar with it, but the proposed trail along Nauvoo is not land that WM has any control over. I think, again, I'm not super familiar with this, but I think some rough cost estimates maybe were worked out. But beyond that, I'm not really sure where that project went. And I'm sorry here, but I also don't remember the individual who was kind of championing that or maybe brought it forward. So.
Amanda, do you want to add to that?
Thanks, Mayor Rambos, and thanks, Wayne. That was accurate. If I may also just support the discussion that happened at the WM End Use Committee on that proposed trail expansion. Wayne is right. It was the focus and scope in relationship to the committee kind of mandate. We did do some consultations though with some other municipalities who had installed similar trails. We did do some preliminary budget work and consultations with our engineer on kind of design needs. That trail along Nauvoo as proposed would entail acquisition of land outside of the existing right-of-way to support it. So all along that stretch, all of that land, the municipality would have to acquire. And then the design features, I think, would be quite extensive. So even though it seems very simple to put a paved, trail 4 feet wide wherever there's room for drainage and existing infrastructure features like culverts and existing infrastructure, it very clearly became quite challenging from the get-go. So as a committee, we still have all that information available, and it's available for council should they ever want to pursue that any further. But council had referred it to the end use committee, and so the committee thanked the public member for their comments and proposal, and it would be great perhaps for future consideration, but refocused on, again, their specific mandate on WM lands in order to prepare and present this proposal as Wayne has outlined.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I'm wondering if we have a time, like an estimated time for each phase.
No, not specifically, Mayor. We historically the last 5 phases have kind of been an every other year type implementation. We'd like to target that same approach, without truly making a commitment per se. As I mentioned here, there are a couple other permits or approvals necessary. I don't want to predict those. And at the end of the day, the implementation of this does come down to budget and availability of that budget for construction. So it's possible we may be able to initiate construction on a first phase this year. It's more likely though that first phase will happen in 2023 and then kind of an alternating year type extension beyond that.
Okay, thank you. So council, I'm not sure if Mr. Jenkins is looking for an exact motion to approve this project, or if how we want to proceed.
Yeah, and maybe I don't think I necessarily have any requests. I'm here on two fronts. Number one, representing WM, but also representing the end use committee and presenting this to council. I think as far as I'm concerned, this can be for information. And at that point we can sign off. And if council wishes to proceed with some sort of a recommendation or approval, I leave that entirely up to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation then. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. Is there any other questions before we say goodnight to Wayne and John? Thank you very much. It looks great. I think the community will be excited to be able to use that.
Very much appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Okay, council. We are going to go back down onto our agenda and go to J, which is the rezoning or zoning bylaw amendment for 7140 Egremont Road. And there is a recommendation there that be approved. How does council want to deal with that?
Mayor Brumboats, if I may, before
Yes,
discussion on this occurs, we did have the applicant as well as an interested member of the public who had registered previously for the first zoning amendment meeting register, and I have just let them in, but one is connecting to audio. I just wanted to flag that in case there are questions of them and wait for they have now both joined. It's Kathy and Robert. Mayor Brumboats, if I may, before discussion on this occurs, we did have the applicant.
We are. Okay.
I think that was a playback of the YouTube script. Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, great. Welcome. So if everybody is here, then we do have a recommendation here. Do we have a mover and a seconder to that before we start discussion? Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. There's no official zoning thing that I need to read or anything? Okay. Any questions or anything that the petitioners want to highlight? Well, this could be very simple. All right, all in favor of approving the proposed zoning bylaw 6 of 2022. That is carried. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
It's very simple. All right. Then we will move on to K, which is the East Lambton Community Complex Capital Fundraising Campaign Report. And we need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that, or to approve that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate, questions or comments on that report? Anything that staff would like to highlight on that?
Mayor Rumba, it's just that things are moving along and our campaign cabinet is together and an announcement will be made to the community publicly very soon, releasing those names of the great community participants. And we also announcements on the campaign will be coming soon. So we're really excited to kick off everything.
Great. And just a comment that our chairs, George and Rhonda Knoll, are doing a fantastic job. From what I've seen so far, they've been just absolutely excited and enthusiastic about this project. So we're very grateful to them as well. All in favor of receiving and filing that report or approving that report? That is carried. And then we'll go to the East Lambton Community Complex Construction Progress Report. We need a mover and a seconder to approve that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. Questions or comments on that report? Amanda's been doing a great job. She's kind of taken the lead on this project. Is there anything you want to highlight for council or for the public today?
Thanks, Mayor Rumba. So I would note that the detailed notes about construction are included in the report. One thing I do want to highlight is actually a portion that was added as an addendum this morning. Apologies for that, but it is an update on the overall project timeline. So as you can see, the project is moving, but we have been impacted by some labor shortages in COVID-19 on the projects with specific trades in mind. Unfortunately, the trades that are impacted are the trades that need to kind of go first before other work can be done. The impact of the labor shortages will adjust the timeline for the project. So our target that was the summer of 2022 is now the fall of 2022. The municipality has worked directly with the contractor and our project manager to, identify the critical path, the timeline that needs to be met on certain actions to make that achievable. And we believe that it's feasible given any, of course, unforeseen circumstances or shutdowns, but we think it's feasible. So we'll make sure to keep council and the public informed as we know more, but we are doing everything we can to move it along, and we think we can meet this timeline. So I wanted to highlight that because it's a big piece of news for the amenity that will be available a little later than we initially anticipated.
Okay, thank you for that. Just a comment from the public that I have heard that they were very grateful that the dressing rooms were done on time and in time for Silver Stick, and that they were very happy with our staff, and the way Silver Stick went over was fantastic. So it's always good to hear those good comments from the community. All right, all in favor of that report? That is carried. And we'll go on to the committee and other minutes. So we have the minutes of the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of January 12th, 2022. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes. Councillor Westgate and Councillor White. Is there anything that Councillor White you'd like to highlight from that meeting? You are muted, Councillor White.
We're just, again, into COVID restrictions, so things are kind of on a standstill. No, just that, as was said before in the meeting, a very favorable response to the WM proposal for the pathway. So from everyone.
Great. All right, all in favor of that, of those minutes being approved? That is carried. And we'll go to the minutes to approve the minutes of the special council meeting of January 13th, 2022. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Questions or comments on those? All in favor of approving those minutes? That is carried. Thank you. We go on to new business. We have an additional petition for drainage works on the Parker Drain. We need a mover and a seconder to approve that petition. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? That is carried. And then there's a petition for drainage works on the Wolvet Drain. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Morris. And that is to hereby approves the recommendation that the drainage superintendent proceed with the improvements of the Wolvet Drain under section 78 of the Drainage Act, and that 30 days notice to the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority and new report be prepared by Spreets Associates before the work can proceed. All in favor? That is carried. And a petition for drainage works on the Brown Jarrett Drain, that Warwick Township Council hereby approves the recommendation of the drainage superintendent to proceed with improvements of the Brown Jarrett Drain under section 78 of the Drainage Act, and that 30 days notice to the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority a new report be prepared by Spreets Associates before the work can proceed. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Morris, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. And we are going to need a motion to move into the closed meeting section for the reasons listed on the agenda. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. So we will be moving in camera now. We thank everybody who watches on YouTube, and we wish you all a very good evening. We will be returning to open session, but only to bless any minutes from the in cameras and to do the bylaws. So we won't be going back on YouTube. Thank you and have a good evening.